Kathleen Wynn was there. The questions were flying. They were running out of time. I came up with a ploy to get her attention. It was effective. And so, Russell, let's just roll that clip from last night.
Okay, so I'm going to go.
It's a bit loud.
I'm going to go. Oh, I promised you, didn't I? Yes.
Yeah, you did.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I wanted to get the Premier's attention because there's been a lot of attacks, not attacks, but telling about the healthcare system in Ontario. And I have a happy story. I've lived in BC. I can compare. Perhaps some of you recognize me from CBC's smash television hit, Royal Canadian Air Force, where for 10 or 12 years, I used to make fun of people like you and the former Premier and the Prime Minister and Jean Chrétien and all those people, and you remember. And then I had to stop because on November 20th, this very day, 2013, I was so ill-equipped to function in this society, I was able to get to Mount Sinai, where I was picking up one of those things they call a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, where it had already metastasized into much of my skeletal structure. I had 2 liters of urine packed inside. I didn't know that because I was so immobile I couldn't even slosh it around. When I finally saw the expert doctor at the end of the month of December, because when you're diagnosed at the 20th of November, they get right on that. So between Christmas and New Year's Eve, the expert said, "I'm so sorry, you're so far gone. Chemotherapy is not an option for you. You're just too far gone." And I can back this up with the documentation that I have here. Also, radiation was beyond my grasp, and so was any kind of surgery. They wanted to get me on a hormone suppressant. This slows down the testosterone, which is the fuel for the cancer. So without an option whatsoever, I synthesized in my Scarborough kitchen cannabis oil that I hear constantly from your health board about how it doesn't work. This is the 3rd anniversary of my funeral, everybody, so thanks for coming. I always wondered what it would be like to die and then have everyone at your funeral, and this is to the date. And so what I'm saying to you is that these folks with the questions and the students and the stresses that you're having and all of these different remedies that can come from cannabis oil, that your government and a lot of others, I know you're following in tow, have decided to scientifically repress data that I have here with me, that I talk about now on my show, that I get to talk about 3 years after my death, called Green Crush on YouTube. Look it up, Green Crush everywhere. It's a downloading app. And I am telling you that this pending legislation of cannabis is so greatly flawed, far more than the vape law that you guys laid on us 2 years ago and rescinded the next day based on the fact that it was somehow or other impractical to carry out. And I'm not even done counting the impracticalities of your current legislation, that of Justin and Bill Blair. We don't need to go to the cops right away. We need to go to the people that were supposed to be dead, know how it works, and stop telling kids, "Oh, we need to educate you," only on the bad side. Well, listen, if anybody puts salt on their food, take it easy, hypertension, ruin your meal, but you put too much on, you used it wrong. When you use it properly, it's delicious. So the question is, will you consider that since your proposed legislation, sheepishly brought forward by your 3 top ministers, like they were trying to get away with something, will you consider some different kinds of input from people that have been through this impossible cure? Because this stuff is against the law. What you're doing to prevent access and not using science. Let me just, thank you very much for listening.
Welcome. Thank you.
And we're very glad you're here. It's a great anniversary for me. Thank you.
Congratulations. So I will just say to this, because you rightly recognize that there is a federal component to this, and there are federal parameters around the legalization of cannabis. We will continue to work with the federal government. There are a whole lot of issues around edibles and all of that that have not been resolved. So we are going to continue. This discussion will continue to evolve. But we are going to stick with the rollout that we've got now. And we'll work with the federal government. Okay. Thank you for your
one
last
thank
quick
you, Russell.
question.
One more. Thank you very much. And there was one more question after that as well. And are we good for levels? Everything sounds good. Okay. Running live, folks. Going live. So that was me attending the premiere. And, of course, a lot of people came and talked to me afterwards. I think we have a guest on the show soon because of that. And I was able to meet a few people who wouldn't let me leave the room in time. They did want to talk to me, including a reporter for a national broadcaster who was very fascinated. He's interested in what I was talking about. They shot a lot of footage of my reaction to Kathleen being there, and he told me to watch the news last night. None of that was on the news. The story was that the premier had bravely done a town hall in front of the citizens to talk about various topics. That was the narrative of the news pieces that the media had attended. And that was the tone of what they wanted to do, because the fact that the premier would hold a meeting and be brave enough to do it and be brave enough to do this, that was the story. They didn't want to clutter up with the news of how a man in that jurisdiction has, quote unquote, illegally used an illicit substance to save his fucking life and then tell everybody about it. That's far less interesting, apparently, than the fact that this person participated in a public forum, of which there should be far more, and of which no one should need to have a compliment about them bravery facing that they need to do. They should be complimenting them on the fantastic job they're doing instead. But there weren't any plants in the audience, so that's not how it went. But there I was talking to the premier. I hope I'm on her radar now. I had been trying tweets for a long time, and eventually rude and offensive tweets, because the nice and polite ones were being ignored. And last night I cranked up a little salt and vinegar, and sometimes that's more effective at getting noticed than a caramel sweet sundae. So that's what I was doing last night. I live in this country. I live in this province. There's the premier, and I decided I needed to respond to this as a citizen.
The citizens respond to the challenges of the outside world and its geopolitical machinations. Say, this is news, Caleb, and we better do something about it.
So that's what I did. I went down there and spoke with Kathleen. So thanks, Kathleen. Thanks for paying attention long enough to register my opposition, which I am going to try to steamroll into an awareness cloud that just shows the stink of what's been proposed. Now, before I move on, I just also want to say I need to remind people that think, oh, well, cannabis is going to be legal next year. Pay more attention to that. Than it's far more complicated than this. In fact, several of our guests and a lot of people we're talking to think the best thing that could happen is for the entire legislation to drop because the government falls and they don't have time to finish legislating the thing. I mean, I wouldn't be against that at all. But in the meantime, understand that through this complicated series of machinations, if you will, again, to try to regulate this substance, we are looking at this proposal. There's so many things wrong with it, but here's a couple of things.